Okay, so you should have done the activity that allowed you to explore the graphs of sine and cosine. Today I'm going to kind of just lay out a little bit better why it looks like that. Okay, so keep in mind that when we're working with a sine function, the sine values on the unit circle are always the y value. So if we start on the x-axis, that coordinate point that we start on is 1 comma 0. So the y value is 0. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move this cursor around the circle. And as I do that, you'll notice that it's following the y values, not the x, the y values. So if I'm starting at 0, and then I move around the circle, my y value goes up to 1, and gradually goes back down to 0. Then I'm going below the x-axis down to -1, then back up to 0, which is why it takes the shape that it does. This is following the path of the y values, not the x, the y values. So when I do a cosine function, this one is following the x values. Remember, that coordinate point that we start with is 1 comma 0. As we follow the x will go from 1 to 0. Then it dips to -1. We end up going to the other side of the x-axis. But then we gradually go back to 0 and then back to 1 because we're following the x values, which is why the cosine graph, which is in blue, looks the way it does. So you got to pay attention as to what value you're following when you're graphing sine or cosine. That's why it ties in so nicely to the unit circle. Sine is related to the y values, and the red graph is the y value graph. Okay, cosine is related to the x values, and so the blue graph is related to the x values.